Welcome to another edition of the Parks and Recognize interview series. Thank you for helping us celebrate and recognize the remarkable Parks and Rec pros who foster community spirit, inspire engagement, and ensure that everyone has equal access to parks and wellness activities in their communities. In each episode, we sit down with passionate Parks and Recreation professionals to explore the crucial work they do, their journey in the Parks and Rec world, and the passion that drives them to do what they do. I'm your host, Datis Mosenipur, VP of Marketing at Xplor Recreation, and today I'm joined by Johnathan Oliver Skinner from the city of Lake Elsinore, California. It's a pleasure chatting with you today, Johnathan.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. Well, I always like to set the tone of these interviews with a get to know you, like icebreaker style question. So my question for you is going to be, what's your favorite park that you've ever visited?
Well, mine probably, I was very fortunate in my career. Um, I actually worked right on Lake Tahoe, a place called Incline Village, and my office was literally 2 football fields away from the lake. So I started out as a superintendent and actually turned the position into an assistant Parks and Recreation director. And that was probably one of my favorite as far as having recreational activities available to me and to my family. My kids learned how to ski and snowboard there. They learned how to water ski on Lake Tahoe. Uh,
Wow.
I I went fishing on Lake Tahoe. We had a golf course, 2 golf courses, and so I played both of them periodically. So um,
Amazing.
yeah, so I would say that's probably one of my favorite places. Any place that I actually work or have a place to go where I have an opportunity to experience and relax, I think is my favorite place.
You must have had some really good lunch breaks out there.
Very, very much so. I'd be able to walk down and when you're able to look at one of the most pristine lakes in the entire world, one of the clearest lakes, it's just amazing. And then we had a lot of snow there because the elevation so high, is that I got to enjoy so many different activities in one location.
That's pretty darn special. Well, thank you for sharing that, Johnathan. And how long have you been actively working in Parks and Recreation?
Well, Datis, this people don't believe me, but I actually started when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
Um, I knew what I wanted to do way back then because my parents, my dad he was in the Air Force, but he also worked for Martin Marietta doing missiles and those kind of things. My mom worked at the local hospital. And from those two, I was able to get a really great grasp of giving back to the community and giving to people,
Mm,
even at the age of 7. So I
wow.
started as a junior counselor in training. So it was junior CIT, and the person that took me under their wing was one of the football players that played with my brother in high school, and so he had me doing things that other counselors in training were doing who were the age of 14. So I was a
Mhm.
junior counselor in training, so I got to put on games and do different things and assist. I remember we lived in Lompoc, California, which is in Central California, and we would actually take bus trips down to the Forum and go watch Magic Johnson play basketball.
Wow.
They had me assisting on those kind of things, and so I I I I had a great love of doing that even at the age of 7, and so that's what got me started in this field. And I'm 61 now, so I've been doing it for quite a
Holy.
while.
Well, good for you. I was going to say 15 years you've been doing it until you mentioned Magic Johnson. And so, well, that's incredible. And from there, throughout your teenage years, did you continue working in Parks and Recreation before you then went to school for it, or what was that path like?
Yeah, so in when I was younger, like most kids, I started paper route. I had my own lawn cutting business. My dad. So there was 8 of us in the family, 6 boys and 2 girls.
Oh, wow.
And so our parents believe very strongly in education. I have a sister who has a PhD. I have an older brother who uh, was in the Air Force and worked in the B-1 bomber. All my other brothers and sisters are very talented in music and those kind of things. And I'm like the more of the public speaker kind of guy. So they, you know, um, they gave us this strong sense of family and a strong sense of community and so I started working after the paper route. I worked at the local carpet cleaning place, and then I decided to go into recreation. So I did it part-time. Ken Osteen, who was my mentor in Lompoc, had me work part-time at the local Parks and Recreation Park, where I was a recreation leader. And then I went over into Ellen Hancock and started working uh, three-quarter time. So I would go to school from 8 to 2, and then from 2 to like 8, I would go to work for the city of Beverly Hills and do my education and everything. So I put myself through college, and was able to get my bachelor's and my master's in public administration all through recreation. So I've been in it for forever.
Amazing. Amazing. And for those listening today who aren't familiar with you, although I'm sure that's very few folks, where are you working today, and what is your current role?
So I work for the beautiful city of Lake Elsinore in Southern California, in Riverside County, uh, called the Inland Empire, and I'm the director of community services. So what that is we are the recreation arm of Parks, Recreation, and Community Services. We do anything from uh, your typical recreational programs that, we just talked before we went on about, pickleballs and those kind of things. But we
Mhm.
also work with the school district and my team that I have the honor to work with, not supervise, but work with. They created a after school program in the schools that the schools actually pay us to come in and do, and it's pretty incredible. But also, we run a campground here called Launch Point. Um, we inherited a campground years ago without any resources, and it was what I consider rustic. It was on septic, and it had the old copper wire and everything around it. And myself and some of the team were part of a think tank of what do we want to be when we grow up as a campground. And I happened before this position, I happened to be honored to work down in San Diego at Santee Lakes, where I was the director down there. And so we actually came up with of what we wanted the park to be. And we wanted to be a resort, not just a park. We want people to come and enjoy the amenity that we have. We have a 3,000 surface acre lake, 14 square miles that abuts the campground. So we basically blew it up, put in all water, sewer, and electric. We have
Wow.
190 campsites. Plus, let's say if you wanted to come camping, you didn't have a camper. We also have eight, 8 or 9 airstreams that are fully, have all the hookups and everything. And like, if you didn't want to do that, we also have
Mhm.
these things called yurts, which are soft-sided tents that are people that are able to come. And so the yurts, we have 7 of those, and each one is themed. So my wife and I, we do staycations. We'll stay there, and there's one called the beach. It's made for 2 people. The theme inside is the beach theme. And we have one which is called the boho, which is the Moroccan theme, and the lodge, which is a wooded theme. And then we have one that is the rock and roll. Each one has its own individualized deck. Well, the rock and roll actually has a deck that has lighting on the outside, that just like a stage, and on the inside it has old rock and roll pictures, and the bed is a stage, and the drawers are speakers and everything. So that's one of the things that we do as well, and we oversee sports creating new programs and working with the community on special events. We do some really great special events here. Our biggest one is Winterfest. We have, as we say, 12,000 of our closest friends who come down for a nighttime parade and festivities all night long. So I do a couple things.
Yeah, like maybe a 7-page job description is what we're looking at approximately.
Yeah, I have to change the font down to like a 2 if I want to 7. But it's just what we do and what anybody in our field does is we're memory makers. And that's what we really look at it doing is we make memories. And we talk about here at our city, we talk about the 5 W's. Who we're doing it for, what we're doing it for, where we're doing it, when we're doing it, and why we're doing it. Because you always have to have your why. So we always talk about whenever we're doing something, the 5 W's, and then the H is how we're going to do it, how much it's going to be, how are the people going to be positively impacted. So when we look at those 5 W's and the H, it helps us create programming that it meets the needs of the community.
I love that so much. And I mean, it's so deeply enrooted in anything that any park and rec professional does. It always starts with the community members and the whys in the house. So thank you for sharing that. You did mention as well that your event with a couple thousand of your closest friends. I think that's actually a really great segue into my next question. Um, I'm very much a firm believer that Parks and Rec pros are the heartbeat of communities everywhere. And I just want to take a moment to pick your brain on what community means to you.
Well, community means a couple of different things. One is, and we talked about it before, while we have been communicating for the last couple of weeks, is building people up on their positive qualities. Too much
Mhm.
we focus on the negative, and to build a really good community within your organization, you need to find out what people do well, and you need to make sure that you're able to stretch them to do even better. Uh,
Mhm.
you try not to I try not to focus on the negative too much because too many people do that. So for our city community, our work community, that's the thing I look for. For community, we believe a lot, and it's a an overused word by a lot of people, but inclusionary, making sure that every person in our city or whatever city I work in has that opportunity to experience the same kind of things that I do, but in the way that they enjoy it. One of the projects that we're doing right now, one of our staff, Ben Foster and Justin Harding, are working on changing one of our parks to a universally accessible park. And what that means is we have a great community leader who created the Challenger League, and those are for it's a league for those with mental and physical disabilities. They couldn't play, regular baseball, but
Mm.
we were able to take one of our fields and make some basic modifications in order for them to play. Well, they've done a lot of research in order for us to be able to take that park and that playing field and make it more universally accessible, meaning for wheelchairs, for people who don't have sight, for people who have learning disabilities and their families. That
Incredible.
works in the community itself. So I'm really excited because we were able to talk to our council. 5-0, they said, we have to do this. We started when we first came on about 10 years ago, myself and Bo Davis, who's our assistant director. When the public works would do the parks, we want to make sure that there's a little, as we say, sprinkle a little cinnamon on it of having accessible and inclusionary pieces of equipment into the park. Now
Mhm.
with this inclusionary park, it's not going to just be for those individuals who have those opportunities for success, but it's also available for the entire community. So again, it makes it more inclusive for all members of our community to come in and participate. That's what community means to me.
I love that, Jonathan. Thank you so much for sharing that. And one thing that really stood out to me was the being able to enjoy it how they want to enjoy it. Um, because it's not going to be the same for everybody. It's not going to be the same experience, and no two people are necessarily going to enjoy things the same way. So I really love that you called that out, and really love to hear about the work you folks are doing. It sounds incredible. Jonathan, as a close follower of your LinkedIn profile, there's no shortage of incredible things you're doing on a regular basis. And I mean, you just shared one of many. I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of your personal accomplishments in your professional career that you're most proud of and why they're special to you.
Um, it really has nothing to do with me per se, more of the opportunity of giving others to be better than me. An
Mhm.
accomplishment for me is, and I learned this from a director a long, long time ago, and I learned it from many other directors saying the same thing. You need to give people an opportunity to give a path, to follow a path. And if it's not there, have them create their own path for others to follow. I believe strongly in succession planning. And when I leave a location, I hope that I've done the proper justice to the people that I work with, that they're the next ones to take my place. I have had the honor of being able to do that several times, and also been able to see them go on to other positions and be better than I was in their new position. That to me is one of the greatest accomplishments. Yeah, I can do stuff, and I've done different kind of things I'm proud of. I was no, identified by the California Parks and Recreation Society of one of 50 over 50. And there's a whole magazine that was done a couple of years ago on that. And I've written for papers, and I've done articles, and I've spoke at conferences and that kind of stuff. And that's all great. And it makes me feel great. But what makes me feel greater is when I go on LinkedIn and I see somebody that I work with, that I had the privilege of working with, or being their supervisor or director, and see them accomplish the things that they wanted to accomplish. And I always ask that of my team, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they say, well, I want to be you. Okay, well, let's figure out how you're going to be me. And that's why, we have some really big projects that are going on right now. One is the creating a new master plan. It hasn't been one here
Mhm.
for years. So do I need to do it? Do I need to be the person in charge of it? Not really, because at some point in time, I'll be retired. Wouldn't it be great as if, and actually it's Ben Foster who is taking this project that's going to dictate how recreation is done for the next 20 years, and his signature on it. He's the one who's working, who did all the interviews, the RFP, created the RFP, and conducted the interviews. And I sat in on them, but he's going to be the one that's going to be directing it to that next level. And so when I'm out fishing, because that's one of the things I love to do, but now I'm out fishing and I'm still in LinkedIn, I'm looking at things, and he's a director someplace, or Justin or Bo is the director here or whatever. That's that kind of accomplishment that I feel that really, I'm really proud of. Passing that legacy on of 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 giving them that chance to make their own path and be who they want to be.
That's so special. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm sure your entire team and the people you've worked with in the past are grateful for the mentorship that you've given them and the roads you've paved for them. That's really great.
Thank you.
I've also noticed that among the many things you're doing, your 7-page job description, there's also a page or maybe two dedicated to work that you do for the NRPA. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing and maybe what you've done in the past? Because it's not your first round, is it?
No, well, giving back to organizations that give you the opportunity has always been something that I loved. It started when I was in California CPRS. the California Parks and Recreation Society, and I started there as a student on the CPS district representative, and I then went on to be vice president of our district and president of our district. And I think that right there is an opportunity to lead and to give myself opportunities for to not perfect but improve different avenues of myself, how I
Hmm.
communicate, how I write, how I speak, how I deal work with those in leadership positions. So CPRS really helped me there. Then I moved over to Reno, as I mentioned before, Incline Village, and I became, really involved with the Nevada Recreation and Park Society,
Hmm.
up through, and I was assistant, a VP there, and a president there, um, and and worked a lot on sessions and session reviews. I think that kind of stuff is really, really important because what that does is that gives people in our profession an opportunity to learn from somebody else.
Yes.
Now with NRPA, it's really funny. One of the people that used to work for me, Sven Laff, who is now in Truckee, he was a superintendent in Idaho at the time. He says, "Hey, Jonathan, there's this thing called the CPC, which is the Conference Planning Committee. And what
Hmm.
we do is we put out a large net to the entire NRPA, which is about 10,000 members or so. And we say, hey, you know, do you have some knowledge? Do you have something that you want to share? We have different opportunities, either a speech session or an hour-long session, or there's some two-hour sessions. Fill out these forms and go ahead and submit them. Well, we would review all, and from I think the last one we had like 800 sessions that we read through, all 800 sessions. And then we changed it at one point in time where we had specific ones. So I think I had facilities and maintenance on facilities, but then we started reading them all again, which gave us a large breadth of information and professionals in our field that are out there that people have a chance to learn from. And so I've been doing that for the last 6 years. Actually, this is my last go around for the Atlanta one. It's really great. I've had opportunities to actually present at CPRS, NRPA, and Nevada. The last couple sessions I've done have been on staff motivation and staff recognition, because I believe very strongly in celebrating our victories, understanding our as I call them, opportunities for success or failures, but
Yes.
actually recognizing the successes not only of staff but of volunteers, but not only of volunteers, but also those who give us an opportunity to be successful. Those would be our city managers, our councils, our elected officials. That a lot of times they only get the negatives, but they also need to get the positives from their staff that show their appreciation for having the ability to do what they do.
I figured it'd be something of that ilk, given just the positivity that you wear. It doesn't surprise me at all that those are the topics that you're sharing the good word around. A purveyor of positivity, if we would.
I appreciate that.
Um, well, that's really special. So you've been doing that for quite some years, and this is your last go around, eh?
Yeah. What we like to do with the CPC, or like the CPC likes to do, is bring in new blood every,
Yes.
and I've had friends who served on it for 6 years and took a 4 year break and they came back again. And, I think it's time for a new crew to come in and, and give their take and put their mark on what will be learned over the next several years.
Well, that's very special, and I'm sure that your contributions will be missed, but it'll be great to get a new generation of contributors as well. Well, Jonathan, when you're not busy empowering your community, doing all the jobs on your job description, volunteering your time with the NRPA and other associations, you talked a little bit about fishing, but what can we expect you to be doing in your spare time?
Fishing. I actually love to fish, and the other thing, well, there's a lot of things I love to do. One is really about family and connections, and it's with my wife. We've been married. Actually, this last Thursday we celebrated 32 years of being married. Uh,
Congrats.
we we actually just got these. Well, you can't see it because it's a radio one, but we have our birth, not our birth, but our wedding date on our arms, and so we
Oh,
both
cool.
the same, so it's June 20th, 1992. But
Wow.
what I do in our spare time, and actually my wife was talking about it when we were coming back from our trip, is we actually do mani-pedis every 3 weeks,
Nice.
and we go and it's a time for us to spend time together without anybody else, and then we go down to our local pub. We also always have dinner and drinks there. So spending time with my wife is really important. Spending time with our grandkids. They live in Texas, so we
Oh,
take
yeah.
trips whenever we can. The other things that I enjoy, I mentioned fishing. What I do is I set myself goals, not resolutions. I don't like resolutions. You change them. Goals you can change. Resolutions you just don't do. But goals you can alter them to make them functional. So at the beginning of this year, I set a goal for myself to fish in Mexican waters for big game fish.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love deep sea fishing, but I've never done big game fish. So we actually were on a cruise, and I set up an excursion for the cruise, and Janelle was able to go and hang with some people that we met. So I actually went out on a pongo and caught 180-pound marlin.
Oh my goodness.
And I was very impressed with that because I set a goal that I wanted to do something just to be out there. Well, the thing is, I actually got the thing in 30 minutes. I actually,
Wow.
yeah, I impressed myself. Not bad for an old 60-year-old guy at the time. Uh, but my wife and I spend a lot of time just doing things. We take a lot of um, staycations. We have some places around that we love to stay in. We play Top Golf. I don't know if you've heard of Top Golf. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, well,
Had
so people
had a
don't
few
be
rounds myself.
but on my arm. I'm a big Dallas Cowboy fan,
Oh,
but
yeah.
my arm, you really, I don't know if you can see it. That is actually a Top Golf symbol.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, that's how. Yes, and I don't even work for them.
They ought
But
to give you something for that, though.
no, I just love the business model. My wife and I have been to 26 of them across the country.
Wow.
Anytime we take a vacation, we make sure we go to a Top Golf, and we do these little videos on Top Golf, and we came up with a little saying is go to Top Golf, they'll treat you like a pro every time. And we send the videos to the different managers that are at these different places. We never ask for anything. We play full boat all the way through. It's kind of like what I do with I have the privilege to do at my team. I want to celebrate everything they do. And they know. Jonathan always asks us, pictures, 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 tell our story,
Yes.
put shekels in the bank. And what we mean by that is anytime you do something good, make sure that they know that you did something good. So when we
Right.
get to the budget time, and they go, oh yeah, I remember that new program or project they did. Yeah, let's give them a couple extra bucks here, or let's not take money away from here. Let's actually take away from some other department. But then that way, they're able to see the fruits of their labor, if that
Yes.
makes sense. So,
Yeah. Celebrate every win and make them known.
mhm.
Absolutely.
So those are the kind of things in my spare time. I love to play golf. My son plays golf as well. He's a Dallas Cowboy fan. Some people hold that against them, but hey, that's who we are. But we play golf, and my daughter actually started playing golf as well. So it's playing golf, fishing, being with my wife. Those are the things I love to do in my spare time.
Traveling and treating yourself with some mani-pedis, right?
Yes, yes. When
Gotta
we go
get
on
the
trips,
Aziz Ansari meme up there. Treat yourself.
yes, yes, exactly.
Well, I love it. Thank you for sharing that. I've got one more question for you before we wrap up. And this is one of my favorite ones to ask, actually. Given all the experiences you've had, all the wisdom you can share, what's one piece of advice you'd recommend to anybody in the Parks and Recreation profession?
Don't be afraid to fail. Too often, and including myself, even to this day, is we don't try to do things because we're afraid of failure. Uh,
Hmm.
I constantly hear this quote by Michael Jordan, and he
Oh,
talked
yeah.
about being, I've been, 30, I don't know how many times I've been charged to make the winning shot and missed it. And I was supposed to do this and I was supposed to do that, and I failed. And that's why I succeed.
I,
If, there's an old saying too, is that if you're not failing, you're not trying. Those kind of, that's the kind of thing I would, a piece of advice I would give people is don't, you're going to fail, but fail forward. Learn from your mistakes. Take people along the ride with you because that will help them be successful as well.
I love that. I love that. Actually, one of my favorite quotes is a Martin Luther King quote, I believe, which is, I don't lose, I win or I learn.
Hmm.
Um,
I heard that one before.
I, I I think it's such a debilitating thing to worry about failing because it's so limiting. You can't reach your potential if you're not afraid to try things out because you're scared of making a mistake. But more often than not, those mistakes aren't gonna make the world stop. It's not, you know, the world will keep turning, your job will continue, everything will be fine. I
Yeah,
love it.
I had a boss, Rick Putnam. I remember him. This is earlier in my career, and I was doing something, and it didn't go the way that I wanted to, and I internalized a lot of, uh, I don't call it perfection, I call it improvement, because
Mhm.
I that again from another saying. And so I was, wanted to improve, and I didn't improve. And he looked at me and says, "Hey, Jonathan." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, Rick." He says, "Did anybody die?" I'm like, "What?" He says, "Well, did anybody die?" I said, "No, but this program." He said, "Did anybody die?" "No, Rick, no one died." So then why are you making it feel like somebody died? It
Right.
just didn't go the way you wanted it to. So learn from it, make sure it doesn't happen again, and improve. So, yeah, the old saying, practice makes perfection. No, practice makes improvement.
Yeah.
Everything's improvements. So,
Oh, that's so powerful. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Jonathan, thank you so much for taking the time to sit here and chat with me. I'm sure our listeners are going to take much away from this conversation with you. There's so many great takeaways from here, from our conversation today.
well, thank you so much. It's been great. And, if anybody ever just wants to talk or anything, like you said, LinkedIn is on there, and I love talking to people and seeing where they want to be. And if there's ways that I can help anybody, I think that's one reason, not to get overly religious, but I think God puts us in places that we need to be in and puts people in our lives that makes us and makes them better. So,
Love that. And we'll make sure to put your LinkedIn into the posting here so people know and can reach out to you if they'd like, which I highly advise they do. Thank you again for your time.
well, thank you for the invitation and keep up this great work.
Appreciate you. Cheers.
Cheers.